Hey guys, Chris from Average Eskate Reviews here, and today you join us in Alicante in Spain at the Amerigo Hotel. And what we're doing in this video is showing you essentially the basics or the points that you need to consider when you're traveling with an electric skateboard. Now there's a lot of different factors and things that you have to consider. One of the main ones that you need to keep in mind is the rules for the country that you're visiting to make sure that you're even going to be permitted to ride your board once you get there. But in my case, I don't really take that into too much of a consideration. If I'm going somewhere with my board, regardless of if I'm allowed to or not, you better believe I'm still going to be riding when I get there. But bear that in mind, because if it's something that you're not personally comfortable with, you need to keep that in mind as the first point. And as a quick side note, if you haven't already done so, make sure that you like and subscribe, turn the notification bell on so you can stay up to date with all of the videos that we post. And a quick side note, while we're here in Alicante in Spain, we're going to be doing a range test on the travel battery for the Evolve GTR Carbon and also the Evolve GTR Bamboo. So make sure you look out for that video too. Let's jump into this one. Yeah, that's spot on. Nice. Yeah. So from there, the next point that you want to keep in mind is the capacity of your battery, because airlines all have essentially a cutoff point with battery capacities, lithium ions, that you're allowed to travel with. So you need to ensure that your board, first of all, can even be put onto a plane. And if it can't, based on the capacity of the battery, if you're trying to figure out what battery capacities are allowed to fly, I'll link down below to the main airlines that will show you which capacities are allowed to fly and which aren't. So the first thing you've got to figure out is, if your capacity is too big, does the manufacturer of your board offer a battery that you can travel with? So for example, with Boostits, like the Boostit Stealth, the extended range battery cannot be put on a flight, whether it's going as hand luggage or check-in. The capacity is too great. But the standard range battery on the booster boards can fly if it goes in as hand luggage, depending on your airline. So you need to keep those points in mind. With the example that we're going to be using in this video, it's with Evolve. Now we're looking at the GTR boards in particular, which have their standard batteries, as we all know, which can't fly, but they also have their travel batteries for the Bamboo and also the Carbon, which are created for the sole intention of being able to put them onto a plane to take your board to another country, just like we've done today, so you're able to ride and enjoy having your board in other countries. So definitely bear that in mind, because if the manufacturer of your board doesn't make a battery with a capacity that you can put on a plane, even thinking about taking your board to another country is a waste of time. So from there, it's going to be taking a look at where you're going. Now, this point is something that Ricky mentioned, my camera operator, and also the guy that rides the Carbon GTRs in the videos that you've seen us produce. Plan as much as you can, because you need to figure out what are the road conditions like where you're going, where are you going to be based, what range do you need to get around where you want to ride, and is the board and the battery you're taking with you going to be sufficient to allow you to do that. Now, one of the recommendations that we have is to use Google Street Views. Like, that's exactly what we did when we were thinking about coming to Alicante. What we did was essentially log on to Skyscanner, find the cheapest flights to somewhere that was warm with no rain that would allow us to film this video. And if you're wondering, yeah, we literally flew to Spain, to Alicante, for the sole intention of making this video for yourselves. But make sure the location that you're going to is going to be worthwhile taking your board. Also, use Google Street Views to see what the road conditions are like. Are they rough? Are they smooth? Are you going to need like AT wheels or street wheels? Does the board manufacturer that you use even provide other wheel options? All of these things that you need to consider before you get on the plane, before you get to your location, to find out that you're not going to have a good time riding your board after going through the hassle of carrying it with you abroad. And then from there, it's going to be the cost, because although we were able to log on to Skyscanner and find really good prices to fly from the UK to Spain, what I was unaware of was the fact that adding luggage, in our case sporting goods for the dimensions of the skateboards and also the weight of them they have to go through is oversized. The cost of actually bringing the boards to Spain and then taking them back from Spain, adding that onto our flights, actually worked out more expensive than the flights themselves. So you need to work out if it's actually worth you bringing your board where you're going to, what are the road conditions going to be like, what range do you have with the battery that is able to go on a plane. Definitely consider these things to make sure that you don't waste your time and you don't have a bad experience flying with your board. So the way you get around the cost issue is, again, plan as much as possible. Log on to the website that you're planning on booking your flight with. Log on to the airline site to see what it costs you to fly to your location and what it costs for you to be able to add on the baggage that you need to be able to take your board with you. See if that makes sense before you decide to do it. Now, this is probably one of the most important parts, especially after what's been going on with various other boards that I've used. Make sure you bring spare parts. If you're using the, for example, Evolve GTR Carbon or Bamboo with AT wheels that has inner tubes, make sure you bring at least 1 or 2 inner tubes, extra belts, any extras that you can bring. I even brought a spare remote. We've got spare bearings, spare screws. These things aren't very difficult to travel with. You can just throw them into a bag, or even the skateboard box, excluding the remote because it has a lithium-ion battery. I would suggest putting that in your hand luggage and keeping your checked-in bags completely free of anything that has any batteries whatsoever. But whatever spares that you can take with you, it's worth doing, because if something breaks when you're overseas, I know for a fact that there's no way that I can get spare parts for an Evolve board out here in Alicante, and I don't want that to ruin the fact that I've brought a board all the way from the UK for the sole intention of riding around and having a good time. So bring as many spare parts as you can. Think about what could go wrong. Even if it's a very hypothetical scenario, make sure you think about what could possibly go wrong with the board and try and cover yourself to make sure that you're minimizing the risk of anything ruining your experience while you're away. Guys, you might have to bear my audio in mind because it's off of my phone, but this is exactly why I said bringing a spare remote is so worthwhile doing if you can, because I just dropped mine once and it's completely ruined. Look at that. Look at my board. It's dead. But I have a spare one in my hotel, which is literally 0.1 miles away. But this is why bringing spare parts is so necessary, because this would have killed the whole trip. So once you've considered all of the main points that we've mentioned previously, and you made sure that it's going to be worthwhile you carrying your board where you're going, the next point is going to be packing the board. Now, a lot of the different bags and carry cases that you can get for electric skateboards are essentially built for carrying the board and making it easy, not for flying with. So you find that although they have a tiny bit of padding to make it comfortable to sit on your back, the bags aren't built for being able to throw them onto a plane, because you know what baggage handlers can be like at airports. That's not me pointing fingers, but sometimes things can get very roughly treated. And what the last thing that you want, especially with boards like the Evolve GTRs, where the motors are located at the back of the board rather than, like, for example, a boosted board where the motors are underneath the board, you don't want anything being broken in transit. So what I recommend, instead of trying to find a very expensive bag on Amazon to be able to put your skateboard into to fly with, is use the actual box that it was shipped to you with. Most people buy boards in countries that don't even have the manufacturers or places to actually purchase the boards physically. You buy them online, they're shipped to your house, especially if you buy a lot of these Chinese boards. So that means that that box is designed to be shipped with. If it arrives in good condition, put your board back inside that, sellotape it up, maybe add a bit of bubble wrap inside the bag if you want a bit of added security. But I feel personally, from traveling a lot, the best way to get your skateboard from one country to the other is in the original box it was shipped to you with, because it fits in there perfectly. Normally it'll have lots of foam padding for all of the different components to make sure everything is safe inside there. So it's definitely something worth considering. If you have your original box, use that to ship the board. But if anyone else has got any other suggestions of what they do, please comment down below and let me know. I'd be interested to see if there's a better way of doing this. But the original skateboard box is always a good one. Bit of tape, maybe a little bit of added bubble wrap inside for added security, and make sure there are no lithium-ion batteries inside that box to ensure clean sailing at the airport and through security. So aside from the main point of making sure that all of your lithium-ion batteries, especially the battery for the board itself, is not in the bag or the box that you're going to be checking in, that comes with you as hand luggage, for my GTR bamboo board, it's worth mentioning that when you remove the screws to take the battery off, unlike the carbon GTR, where you can put the screws back in even though there's no battery inside the carbon structure of the board, with the bamboo, you can't do that. The screws need to go into the actual body of the battery. So it means that you need to have a safe place to put the screws so you can reattach them when you land. So it doesn't sound like a big deal, but make sure that you keep those screws safe, because the last thing you want to do is get to your destination, get your battery out the bag, and you have no screws to be able to reattach the battery to the board. So make sure any components that need to be removed from your board while you're removing the battery from the board are kept safe so you can reattach them when you get to your destination. Now, this doesn't sound like a big deal, but during the packing process of getting ready to take your board away with you, take pictures and also video recordings of it. When it's been packed up, do the same again. And when it gets to the final destination, do the same again. If you have travel insurance for sporting goods or anything like that, and anything happens during transit, if you have a record of what the board looked like when it was packed, what it looked like while it was packed, and then how it arrived at the destination, it'll save you the hassle of trying to prove that your board was completely fine and unbroken if it should hypothetically get damaged during transit. It only takes a couple of seconds to do, and it's definitely worth doing in the long run. Now from here, it's definitely worth mentioning that you need to check the size and dimensions and limitations of the airline that you're flying with. What we found when we traveled with our boards is that they had to go through oversized, which wasn't really a big deal, but it meant that we had to check the boards in at the counter where they get tagged up, and then from there move them to the oversized counter to be able to have them put onto the plane. Now again, this isn't a big deal, but it's worth mentioning because depending on the size of the airports that you're in, this can be quite a hassle. If you already know that's going to happen, it just means that you can speed the process up by pre-printing the tags that need to be attached to the board so you can take them straight to oversized. So again, this just comes back to planning and making sure that you try and make this as smooth a process as you possibly can. Again, when you're putting your bags on the conveyor belt, whether they're going through oversized or they're going through the normal way that baggage or sporting goods go through, take pictures of them as much as you can to make sure that you cover yourself should anything go wrong. Now, when you land at your destination, it's worth speaking to anyone in the airport to find out if there's a specific area that oversized baggage comes through the carousels, because I found this out on numerous occasions, especially because of my other YouTube channel, traveling with hockey equipment, hockey sticks. You land at your destination, you wait at the baggage carousel that has your flight number on it for ages, nothing comes through. It's because oversized luggage goes to a different section. So it's worth finding that out first so you know where your bags are going to be coming from, so you're not wasting your time when you land at your destination. And that brings me swiftly on to one of the last points. Make sure that you check your board very thoroughly over once you get to your destination. Make sure that no motors are damaged, nothing's cracked, nothing's chipped. Make sure everything's fine before you take it out for a ride. But hopefully, this has been able to shed some light on some of the points that you need to keep in mind when you are flying with your board. Make sure it's worth doing, because at the end of the day, what you don't want to do is get to a destination and find out there are loads of things that are going to prevent you from having a good time. So bear these points in mind, share any tips down below if you've traveled with a board before, and hopefully this has helped you out. Make sure you thumbs up the video, subscribe, and stay updated for all of the videos that we post, and make sure the notification bell's turned on so you're notified whenever I post a new video. But keep watching, keep subscribing, thumbs up, and stay tuned for the next one. Thanks for watching.